With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Actor and racing enthusiast Paul Newman once said, "If there is a heaven on earth, it is VIR." Today, VIR hosts the opening race of 2023 Season 3 for the Precision Racing League and its F3 Series here on RaceSpot. I'm Justin Prince, alongside the booth tonight, Derek Watts, our producer, Rafael Senke, as we get ready to start off a brand new campaign. These drivers expect a busy night to begin a busy season of 10 rounds of action amongst one of the toughest F3 series in all of iRacing. The pressure has to be on for some, Derek, to try and back up the performances from last season, but also to start off strong at a track like Virginia International Raceway this evening.
That's right, JP. The pressure will be strong for these drivers, and what will also be strong is the passes made on the 2 long straightaways at this course. I'm excited to get going green.
Let's talk first about the schedule this season. We start off here at VIR, then it's Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia with the historic layout. That takes place next week. Then Motorsport at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, followed by de Jerez, one of the first new courses on the schedule. Also new on the schedule is Motorland Aragon. Hungaroring the sandwich between those positionings there in July. In August, it's Donington Park, the Nürburgring Grand Prix Strecke Circuit, as well as Belle Isle, and rounding up the season before we start off September to end off the month of August, in fact, it's with Czech Raceway at Laguna Seca. These drivers, in turn, expecting a busy time amongst that schedule. That battle for the championship, a mixture of tracks, so to speak.
Yeah, a mixture of tracks indeed, JP, and there's a real good mix of F1 tracks and IndyCar tracks on the schedule, so it'll really test the ability of these open-wheel vehicles.
And keep in mind, one of these drivers look to carry over momentum from this past season. When it comes to the championship, it's worth noting because Julio Palacio, for reference, defending series champion, will have to see how things play out for 2023 Season 3. As we get ready for tonight's action, we'd like to remind you that tonight's action is brought to you in part by Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products used in Precision 5 coupon code. Tonight also brought to you by RaceBox, which offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts. From the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Fully priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to add to any setup. Visit RaceboxSimRacing.com and get a 5% discount code using the Precision 5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker includes products that bring incredible immersion and add realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Mecha Sim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for high-end pedal sets, handbrakes, or sequential shifters, visit Mecha Sim Hardware's eShop right now to help you get up to speed. And tonight brought to you as well by, in turn, Moradness, a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Drivers, in the midst of the preparations for tonight's action for the PRL, we'll have to see how tonight fares out here at VIR. It's going to be intriguing, though, how these drivers attack this type of a racetrack. As you take a look at how things fare out before we get things fully going here tonight. You can already see a bit of traffic building up, about 3 minutes on the clock to set the best times in quali.
Yeah, you're right, JP. About 5 minutes left. You'll see these drivers start to get down the track and get their feet under them. This is a track that got rescanned within the past couple seasons in iRacing, so if you've not raced it in a while, you'll need to not look for that tree anymore and maybe find some new whoa. Ha! Okay, wasn't expecting that. Sorry, that took me way off my train of thought there. Those guys just went mowing the grass down that lane, JP.
Yeah, that's not something you expect to see, especially with this racetrack. That was the run through the South Bend for reference. There is no more oak tree, where it's still called the oak tree curve, but you still do not have the oak tree as part of the recent scan. That cut down in real life in recent years. At the top of the board, though, a new look for Kevin Sandiego. He today starts off with Delta Sport. Keep an eye on him as Roberto Cofre, Juan Cofre, Julio Palacio amongst the top four, as well as Boris Ovando in the 5th position. Also amongst those to keep an eye on, Michael Dowden, currently 20th, was a championship contender last season.
Yeah, he definitely was. You know, right now for Kevin Sandiego, this is a great momentum move, JP, where race 1, and now you're looking at maybe putting yourself a point or a couple points here for bonus points, or, you know, qualifying and maybe leading a lap and other things. This is a great momentum move here. But now gets Julio Palacio, now up to P2, just laid down a new lap. And he's going to be on the hunt here with about 3.5 minutes left. But I was going to say, that's a great momentum move for Sandiego to get up here and to just have that strong start. That makes make you feel good.
Fabio Conde amongst one of the newcomers this season in the 111 back in 21st. Not able to bump up the times quite yet. But talking about how you get around this circuit, there's a lot of elevation change, actually. It's about a difference from the bottom of the racetrack around the start and finish line to the top of the hills, about more than 130 meters. How would you talk, 130 feet, should say. How would you attack this racetrack to get the speed, and why?
Well, I mean, you have to really just focus on the parts that are important and the parts that you're good at. You know, making sure you set yourself up for those straightaways is important. Making sure through the S's, which we'll talk about throughout the night, those are very tricky and important to get to the track. But just feeling comfortable here. I think this is a track that's going to surprise a lot of drivers if they've not driven on it before. Listen, in some circles, this is one of the lesser known American road courses. I would, okay, I think he's stopping there. I would just want to be consistent and comfortable and see who I could pass who maybe doesn't know the track that well.
Interestingly enough, these days, it's taken on the moniker as America's Motorsport Resort, because this isn't just a racetrack now. It's a place where you have luxury on lodging. You can have some go-kart action. There's an exclusive drivers club, some off-road racing. Now they also have things like skeet shooting, pistol and rifle ranges, as well as a skid pad at the very minimum. It hosts plenty of exciting action, to say the very least, though, when it comes to especially some of the runoffs that come around this way over the years. Speaking of those trying to prevent runoffs, how about Calix Poon having a good qualifying run so far? Top 8 so far on the board.
And he is top 8. But going back to what you said, though, when this track reopened back in 2000 after being closed for about 25 years, they were looking for ways to make money. And so now you actually can become like a... hold on.
That's 3rd spot for Poon, and now Francisco Gonzalez up to 2nd spot as well with 90 seconds to go on the board. You were saying about the history, because some drivers are having some of their best ever runs in their time in PRL here tonight.
Yeah, they are. But I was just saying real quick, what happens is this track is hinted at a country club style membership program, JP, and those country club members get private track days. So it goes on to what you were saying earlier about all the stuff this track offers, and many people have raced here. Patrick Dempsey, who we saw on the grandstand last week on ESPN with the F1 broadcast, he's raced here. Reba McIntyre's son has raced here, so Reba's been at this track before. So this track is well known, but you know what's most well known for, as we get back to qualifying in a second, JP, is this has become the new unofficial NASCAR testing road course. Since it's not on the NASCAR schedule, these guys get to come test for free throughout the NASCAR season.
And for those who wonder, how does that work to be able to test for a road course race non-schedule? Essentially, it's if you are a new driver in the series, then this is usually where they test your road course racing ability and give you experience in the next-gen car before you hit the actual track with competition. No improvement for Sandiego to close up qualifying here. Expecting a runoff in about 10 seconds' time for drivers to complete their qualifying laps. Already, Stephen Faraday amongst those coming on in from the 7th spot. The Cofre's looking quick. Also looking quick, Nicholas Unger Boris. A couple different Borises looking strong today.
They really are, but what a surprise seeing Kevin Sandiego up on the top of the Julio Palacio in 4th. Man, as we rounded out last season, it felt like Julio Palacio was just on the board every time, could do no wrong. And now he's got competition week 1. Just shows you every season is different in the PRL.
Nicholas Unger Boris electing to finish up the qualifying run. Looking close, not able to improve though, will stay inside the top 10. A few others look to try and close out the run, such as Robert Ridgway. And as to be expected with the new season, a very big field of registrations coming into tonight. Lots of those looking to set expectations around 30 plus, looking to race throughout the season alone. Many returning, but also plenty of rookies showing strong speed to start off this season.
And you know, one thing I love about the PRL, JP, as we cover the series, is that 99% of the time, this league just follows the iRacing schedule. So if you want to get fast in these cars, you can go race officials all week long to practice for these races. So I'm sure some of these guys, if we looked up their stats, has done multiple F3 races this week to get ready for this moment.
Roberto Cofre looking to be the last of the drivers who have a chance to try and improve their time. And keep in mind, things have looked quick throughout this session around the 138s today for the pole times. Looks like Cofre may not get enough time to get around the full track if possible, if not just picked up an off track right there. Your quick thoughts though, before we get things going for tonight's action.
I think my quick thoughts, JP, is that you have to set up yourself on these straightaways. There's two of them. They're both very long. We'll talk about them. And setting up your straightaways and getting ready to pass, I think, is the easiest way to do it at this track.
Best passing opportunities and why?
It's straightaways. It's just, there's no weird corners to worry about. There's no, apexes. There's no nothing. You can get behind someone, pull a little bit of a draft, and get around them. And it should be cleaner and easier than trying to pass someone through a corner.
Looks like Roberto Cofre trying to close out the run. No major improvements still expected for the 22, but that should just about finish up our qualifying runs here today. For PRL action for the F3 series from iRacing's virtual VIR. As the clouds change positions, it's time to see how the positions lay out to start off the new season. This is your starting grid for today's debut race. Kevin Sandiego, new team, starts off strong. Kevin Sandiego on the pole today. He picked up a couple PRL championships last season. Roberto Cofre within about 6/100ths in second. Gonzalez and Poon, row 2. Lacio and Juan Cofre, the top 6. Back in the next half dozen, it's Stephen Verity in 7th with Boris Ovando in 8th. Nicholas Unger Boris in 9th. Nick Armstrong starts off in 10th. With Ryan Miles looking to charge ahead from 11th. Andrew Moran starts off 12th. Robert Ridgway, Dominic Olivier, intriguing. Looks to see how that machine does in an open wheel car. Jake Vasconcelos with speed 18th. Manuel Vargas, Blake CD, Kevin McPherson, the top 18. Back along the 19th spot, Loretto Marini, along with Caleb Lehman, with Steven Ritters and Joshua Chinsky back in 22nd. Michael Dowden, very deep in the field tonight. A shocker for drivers amongst those in the top 5 in points last season. Fabio Conte starts 24th. Austin Harris, 25th. Vincent Genero starts in 26th. With Takesha Kita looking to be sneaky through the field alongside Michael Johnson. Steve Gaora along with Richard Swindells, the top 30. 31st to Precker, Thurman in 32nd. Santos, Calander, Jasper, and Jones amongst the top 36. And rounding up the field, all drivers putting in times, it's James Nutmaker starting off at the tail end of the field. That's a look top to bottom at tonight's running order when it comes to our F3 machines. Get all set to go racing for the first time this season. Just about the entire field all set to get things rolling here. We're underway for F3 competition for round 1 for the PRL. And already 2 and 3 wide as they make their way around the racetrack for the first time today. Working their way off the start and finish straight through the horseshoe up towards NASCAR Bend. Already one lockup and already one crash. That's Vasconcelos off to the grass. Already 2 more spins. More drivers continuing to have chaos as they work their way through NASCAR Bend. At least half the grid has crashed.
Wow, they just keep piling in, JP. It was scarier and scarier as the moments went on. There's local yellows, guys. You have to adhere to those. That's... Oof.
So just like that, a good portion of the field significantly damaged. San Diego, Roberto Cofre still staying 1 and 2. Palacio already up to the 4th position. Others like Harris already up 10 spots as a result of the trouble.
Yeah, that's the key. The guys who were able to be patient or get around it or just stop and wait. That's another strategy. Wait for the track to clear. They're going to pick up a good number of spots back there. You could have maybe seen someone who qualified back in the 30s now be mid-20s or, you know, high 20s due to that moment, JP.
Already some side-by-side. You can already see Boone getting shuffled. Ovando as well. Kita up to 15th. What do we say about Mr. Sneaky? But all these drivers getting to some of the more attrition portions of the racetrack, the work all the way through the roller coaster, as it's called, before that run through Hogpen, before making the run to the front straightaway. San Diego leads off the 45-minute race. Leading things over Roberto Cofre. San Diego not able to break the draft yet, but looking strong in the Delta Sport colors tonight.
Look at how many different S's it feels like there are in this track. And here's a good example of some incline or decline you talked about. This is the second or third time we've seen a camera shot that shows us going vastly downhill or uphill. That is very much trickier for some drivers, and it can lead to blind spots on certain corners of these tracks. Oh, hello.
Oh, that was a little bit of a sketchy moment, and that's Roberto Cofre from second.
I'm pretty sure that's going to end up in the wall right there, JP. I couldn't see it exactly, but that trajectory, if you want to say it, would look like that was headed right for the tire wall.
As a result, Roberto Cofre now off the track. Move Francisco Gonçalves to second, and just like that, the draft basically broken as they work their way through the corners of the trees. Keep in mind, San Diego is someone who showed speed here in the past when it comes to this car. Last season, didn't run as much in this series. In fact, minimally in the points battles. Keep an eye on how this season plays different. Still keeping an eye on Poon and Juan Cofre swapping spots. Juan Cofre to 6th.
A beautiful move. Made his intentions known. Made the very obvious, move to say, hey, I'm going to pass you, and just completed a pass. And got through there on that beautiful, is that seafoam green, I guess you want to call that?
Kind of seafoam green. Yeah. Almost a teal, to say the least. But I have seen Calix Poon in a few different series. Can be very quick around these types of tracks. You know who's very quick on the times? Ovando. Side by side now, building up amongst them, though, despite the personal best lap. Stephen Verity trying to battle with Juan Cofre right behind Palacio.
You saw them get back to single file. Those guys decided they did not want to race side by side through these corners. In some road courses, there's this corner where you can't make that happen, or like this right here. There's no way you could race side by side through these. You need to get yourself in line, ready, and just prepare yourself to make the move later.
There's the saying, stay in line, work together. It's not as easy here when you're going through the snake in particular, when going up those climbing S's before you pass by some of the villas.
Yeah, there's another high elevation here with a big decrease in elevation. This is hard for a driver, even at downhill. It really just changes. It really just changes, how that corner acts and what you expect of it. Compared to like a Watkins Glen, there's very little elevation difference, JP, and those corners are vastly different. This almost feels more like a Sonoma. I know they test here for Watkins Glen, but I don't think this is a Watkins Glen.
I don't know if you put them in the same bucket as a little slide. That's Verity Ovando still nearly getting the front nose sawed off, but still able to hold on as Boris Ovando with the pass.
That was a beautiful pass. Just stuck it in there, stayed confident, and didn't back out of it, and said, I'm going to take that pass and make it happen. Now down this front straight here, this is the shorter of the two front straights, if I remember, or the straightaways, if I remember right.
Well, technically, there's that main straightaway before that little bend for the start and finish line, and then there's that short shoot up to the horseshoe that you're talking about. Speaking of those, shooting up the inside, this is Olivier and Miles side by side for 8th.
And somewhere in that chaos of the past few laps we've been watching, JP, what I missed Julio Palacio, fastest lap. I don't know when that happened. I must have missed the alert for it, but
Just happened.
okay, yeah, he's definitely trying to see if he can make his way to the front. At a 2.5-second gap back from the leader, but we've seen Julio Palacio do some great things before, so I won't be surprised if it happens again.
Already seen those, some of the patience levels building up a little near side by side. Gofre just up the racetrack making the pass. Still, as they work their way through, lap 4 of 26. For those just tuning in, San Diego leading by about 1.3 seconds.
And for those just tuning in, he set down an incredible qualifying lap and has led every lap so far. We've seen some chaos. We saw our P2 driver go off the track, and I believe he hit a tire wall, so he's out of the race, or at least highly damaged, if not out. But yeah, here we go. Finally, he's going to make that pass. We saw him try to make that pass going through those S's and that snake, JP, and I got really concerned if he was going to make that move and that it wasn't going to go well, but I think he thought the better of it. And now Dominic Olivier is up here one more spot here in that number 9 car.
It's intriguing to see. It's intriguing indeed to see Olivier on the racetrack in this type of car, because he's no more so in terms of his abilities in GTs in PRL competition. I've seen him with the PRL Esports colors, in fact, over the years. Still right now in this car tonight, running the 140.2s despite the battling. So amongst those who are quick enough to be in the top 5 currently. Still, it's been very difficult to get a position solidified, so to speak, it seems, this evening.
Yeah, it does seem like, I mean, in some ways you say it's difficult, but I don't know. In some ways it seems almost not stagnant, but it does seem kind of easy. If you just want to block your way through the S's here, you could probably maintain a couple spots here throughout the night.
Yeah, but at the same time, you don't want to get to the point where when you get to that even point where you go back and forth, as we've seen, you go back and forth with this car in the corners, you likely lose a second and have to fight back for 3-4 laps to get there.
No, that's true. You go back and forth in these corners, you're also likely just putting more wear and tear on these tires. And with this track having so much uphill and down here, you're going up and down gears so fast in this track, you're going to be tearing through the tires here. So when that pit stop happens, and we'll all be expecting, is another good question to see where that comes from. Who wants to pit early? Who wants to pit late? You know, does Kevin San Diego want to stay out as long as possible leading this race, or does he want to take the early pit stop and, you know, and run it to the end?
Now, we have seen drivers push towards the end of the fuel windows for the lightest fuel tanks, as Gonçalves takes the personal best lap back at the 139.1s. That's because it's quicker to be able to run on a lighter tank, but also keep in mind, Derek, fuel is timed, so to speak, in the pit box. For drivers who pitted halfway, you are basically going with the surefire strategy to make it to the end. But say you're in the midst of a battle like this, it could be the difference of 1-2 seconds. The box that has picked up drivers in this series in the past several spots, and battles like this one between Miles and Olivier.
Now, the counter argument to that, JP, if you're Ryan Miles, is if you think you're faster than the car in front of you, if you're frustrated, you're being held up in your opinion or whatnot, you want to get yourself off pit cycle with this car. Maybe you want to pit earlier, a lap earlier, or a lap later, and then see if you can make up that. Oh, hold on. Oh, hold on to it. Oh, that's a wall.
Ryan Miles up into the wall, and that's a broken left front tire, so Miles likely out of the race. Unfortunate for Miles, who showed flashes of top 5 speed in his career in the F3 Series, starting off likely with the DNF.
That is rough. That came out of nowhere almost, JP. We were watching in the onboard. I don't know if maybe just some dirty air came backwards from following that car or what happened to him, but he seemed to have it under control. Now if he just lost focus maybe, but all of a sudden, so off in the grass he was out of the race, unfortunately.
Keeping an eye on Verity still. And Verity appeared in a couple races in the past couple seasons in particular, and the thing is, Verity has also been very decent. In fact, despite missing 4 races last season, Verity still finished 8th in the point standings with 4 top 5s in the races he did start in.
And the funny thing about that, I kind of remember doing a post-race interview either in the last race or the one before, and no one was more surprised at his finishing spot than himself. I remember it was me and you, or me and maybe it was me and Terry Radford. We're like, hey, dude, you're going to finish top 10. And he was as stunned as anybody that he was still going to finish top 10 after missing 4 races last season.
I believe last season appeared under the Rust Racing banner. And this season, likely to see a lot more of him, and already backing up some of that pace seen from that performance from those races last campaign where he came close to a couple wins. Let's take a look at Vasconcelos. We talked about how there was that bottleneck off the track that was around the teams. Vasconcelos still holding on to 13th after all that. 22 cars still running. Vasconcelos also avoiding significant damage from the situation. He's battling with Kevin McPherson.
He is battling Kevin McPherson. So let me try to have this talk again and hopefully not make anything bad happen again with that commentator curse. If you're McPherson right now, if you think you're having a hard time getting around this car for 13th, this is where you want to think about it. Do I want to pit early, get myself off cycle and make up that time on the track versus dealing with dirty air and maybe someone who you think is just holding you up? That's another reason to pit early sometimes, is just to try something different. I got through it that time without a car wreck, and I'm proud of myself.
Yes, indeed. We did get through it without a new personal best again. You can already see, just based on what we're seeing right now, these times picking up quicker as a result of this cooler track. This track with the clouds really started to unsizzle itself, especially since it is a later evening start in sim, as we take a look at that battle for 4th again.
And that's an interesting conversation too, JP, because that actually has a big impact. Beautiful passer, his attempted pass out of that corner there. They're going to be side by side, and there's going to complete that pass. That's a great conversation, though, as this track cools off. What happens to these drivers, especially the ones who maybe come out with low fuel and do different things? Your braking points change, your inputs change because you have more grip in the track. It's very different. Maybe those of us who ran the 6 hours at Glen last weekend had that experience across different servers where sometimes it was 120, sometimes it was 99. That's a big difference. And that can change everything about how you react in a race car.
Now remember, the Cofrays before last season were a fixture in this series. In fact, up to 4 Cofrays racing at one time in some rounds. No real presence with the Cofrays last season. This time, though, Juan and Roberto both returning for this season, Derek. These drivers from that entire family, mind you, all have showed flashes, if not winning speed in the past, in particular, back when you think to 2023 Season 1.
Yeah, they have. And it's always great to see regular members return back to a league. It feels good to see that normalcy, if you want to use that word, if you have a better word that I can't think of. It feels nice to see those names you're used to. Go, oh, man, that guy's here. We've raced for seasons. I know that guy. Part of why we love league racing is you're supposed to be able to get to know the guys you're racing against and trust them. So familiar names are always a positive in league racing.
We're shuffling still. Vasconcelos getting shuffled back. Juan Cofre quickly closing up, mind you, to Placio. Placio staying around that 2.5 seconds margin back to that race leading group. Also amongst those battling still, Poon looking to push forward. Poon last time by picked up a good 0.3 of a second to get up to Verity in the draft.
Yeah, great job there to make up that time, and that draft is powerful, even in these F3 cars. We've seen it from time to time. You see them going to get lined up here in that straightaway. It's not as big as other racing series, especially on the oval side, but a draft here is still better than no draft.
Now, there is a catch-2 on that, though, because 22 per se. It's great on the straightaways, and then you enter the corners, because there is aero wake with these cars to deal with.
Oh, there's so much aero wake to deal with in these cars. Any kind of open wheel car, for the most part, is going to have some kind of aero wake in it. There are cars in the service. Listen, take these cars to Indianapolis and go into turn 1 drafting and feel that effect. It's horrible. Oh my gosh, you're right. That's such a thing. So that may have been what happened earlier when we saw that car just kind of go off track as we were following along. But yeah.
Now, as things zip along here and quickly approach the halfway point, keep an eye on Poon in particular here. Remember, there was a big one earlier for those who missed early on. At least 15 plus cars having to take damage repairs this race. All but 3 or 4 have either retired the car or made it back on the racetrack. So some of the drivers you'll see in the bottom of the pylon, several laps down, such as Moran, fighting for points. Keep an eye on that as the night progresses. Still keep an eye on Poon in the midst of this arrow wake. You can see not as close as previous, so can get a lot more speed carried forward compared to if, say, Poon was right underneath that wing.
Yeah, there was a comment made, I forget where, at a real-life race lately. Maybe it was F1. Maybe it was Daniel Ricciardo talking about over the weekend that it's like a 1 second gap. It's really easy to get within 1 second of somebody. And then when you get within that 1 second, that wake kicks in and that dirty air kicks in. And how you behave in that 1 second gap determines how good your race car is. And so I think that's a valued point for these type of cars as well. It's easy to catch someone. What you do once you get there determines how strong you are at the track.
Already still keeping a distance. Interestingly enough, when it comes to Poon, it is a name that some people may recognize because that is a driver from, say, the electric McLaren G Challenge from a couple of years ago. Also competes from the Asia region, based out of Hong Kong, in fact. At just around 16, 17 years old now, to the point where, did you know that some drivers have sim racing wikis? Poon is amongst those who falls in that category with their experience with Goliath Racing over the years on the endurance racing side.
It's always fun to see when drivers get any kind of presence, whether it be wikis or Twitters or Twitches. But hey, just think about that real quick before we move on. Poon, it's 10 in the morning, I guess tomorrow for me, Friday morning. And here he is racing in this league race. It's always cool to see the dedication of different drivers across the globe about what times they get up and race.
Keep an eye on the battle for 13th. Vasconcelos losing a spot to McPherson. Kevin McPherson just amongst those who, remember, had to avoid Chaos Central.
Well, he almost had chaos right there. Got a couple tires up in the grass, JP, and I was concerned what was going to happen there. He is getting close on clipping that grass.
There is a off-track limit rule, keep in mind, in this series, and drivers were emphasized to keep an eye on those entry lines, especially if you're in, say, battles like this one, because, well, if you reach that incident threshold, you have to serve a penalty under this run. So you do not want to have to just come through a drive-through and lose all your spots or risk disqualification. And especially if you're amongst those like Thurman, Precker, and Jasper, who've already had to dodge Calamity Central on lap 1.
Yeah, and I want to come back and talk about lap 1 for a second. There's a point you made about how many drivers came back out. In a 10-week season where points matter, there's no playoff system, there's no anything, it's pure points. You have to get back out here and race and see what you can make happen. You can't afford an off week in a 10-week system. That's when we talked about Verde making top 10 after missing 4 races, but if you want to win this title, you have to get every point possible to be able to be in contention of week 10.
And that's going to be important and why some of these drivers have taken the time to get repairs done. You do not want your drop to be week 1 of a brand new season, to say the very least. For those curious, by the way, in terms of the off-track total this season, 13 for the drive-through and incident points, 17 is the disqualification. And a few drivers likely at least getting close as a result of some of those in the incidents earlier. Just about halfway, expecting pit window opening soon, Derek.
Yeah, we are, and we'll come back real quick. It's a real kick in the pants, that DQ thing, Justin. So obviously what it does, it doesn't matter where you were racing, you're going to get scored last, and I believe you get no points.
Correct.
If you DQ. So you get DQ'd. You don't finish last, you basically don't finish. So you spent 30, 40 minutes or hours practicing to get zeros. That's a hard system, so you got to be careful there. There's a beautiful onboard here for Christian Jasper, following behind 2 cars. You see he's just barely keeping that car a little off center to the cars in front of him. That's going to help avoid that dirty air you were talking about earlier, JP.
And here's the tough thing, too. It's technically almost an aero train or a lock train, but it's also at the same time to where you kind of are stuck here with the double toe. It's good for the track to get on the straights, but right about here, see just where that difficulty is to get the car to rotate, almost pushing off the track, in fact, down the hillside.
Yeah, so that's the difficulty, and that's why I talked earlier about how important these straightaways are, because you want to get up there and make the pass on someone. There's someone pitting, by the way. So pit cycle is definitely open as of this time.
That was Thurman, it looks like, splitting the race in half, halfway this time around. Lap 13 of 26 in tonight's action. And the interesting to keep in mind, we mentioned the 45-minute time limit. We got an estimated 22 minutes left. Likely going to make it based on this tempo that Kevin Sandiego is carrying, to the point where Sandiego, now having to deal with lap traffic, Kevin Sandiego's maintained about a 1.1 second on average lead much of this race.
You know, I'm sure I'm not going to be the first or last person to make this joke, JP, but you have to think most of the field's wondering where in the world is Kevin Sandiego right now.
You're supposed to sing it.
No, we don't. You don't want that. Trust me. We've been friends.
Joey does.
You don't want that. Well,
Joey does.
Joey probably has a better singing voice than I do.
He has a good singing voice, but he still likes singing.
In all of our years of friendship, you've not heard me sing before?
I don't think I ever heard you sing before.
There's a very good reason for that.
Okay. Sandiego, though, has to be singing forward, and that team has to be very happy. Some of the drivers watching along throughout tonight's action, Connor Wagner, a former champion in the series. That organization in PRL action has a fair bit of open wheel experience, and it's an outfit that if you drive for in PRL competition, you expect to be at least a top 3 driver in the championship by season's end.
Yeah, I knew that's a hard expectation. Whoa, that felt a little wide right through that corner there. Right there for Cody Precker. I thought he was going to lose the car for a second, but good job holding on to it. That's a hard expectation to carry sometimes, by the way. We see an onboard here with Cody Precker with that beautiful VR headset on his face, and probably can't hear us, but hi, Cody.
It's Corey, first of all.
Yeah, sorry.
But second, there's the difference in types of VR headsets these days, even, because some of those coming out on the market don't have that side vision guard anymore. So you make sure you can still see your environment, but also doesn't give you a jump scare when somebody taps your shoulder and says, "Hey, would you like this pop that I just brought to you?" And then you would proceed to go in the wall.
Yeah, I have tried VR before, and I became very self-aware of everything around me by audio. It was a very interesting experience, to say the least. I mean, I prefer my triples.
It is the question of triples versus VR, because some drivers indeed do prefer that immersive feeling to be able to look whatever direction they want, but others prefer that triple because it's a fixed look and a more so to speak consistent look for what you can see, and clearer in some cases.
And I was going to say, and I'll probably get some hate mail for this. It's at Justin P Sports on Twitter if you want to send that out, but it's much better graphics quality than VR, in my opinion, if you do triples, for the most part. Send your hate mail to Justin.
It depends on the headset, but you know what? That is depending on the times. Francisco Gonçalves in that deficit to Kevin Sandiego. Gonçalves has kept things fairly decent around that 1 second bracket. That could be making things intriguing, though, in about 10 minutes time when we expect these drivers to come by into pit lane.
Yeah, technically any moment now, but now I'm kind of guessing most drivers who are out are out to run it dry, basically, until they're going to pit. But yeah, he's kept that really consistent. In fact, I think he's actually closed it up a little bit in the past couple of laps. I think the last time I peeked up there, it was over 1 second. So he's doing a very good job at keeping him honest and, not letting Kevin Sandiego rest. Just smoking that corner. Hoping he's okay over there.
Looks like things are okay. Not seeing too many shuffles on the pylon, but it's also, this is an interesting play, an early stop around the 18-minute mark. This is the earliest we usually see this.
I give out to you. I think Francisco, in my opinion, maybe should have stayed out and tried to do something different. I'm surprised he followed him, but that was the plan they set.
It looks like most of the field coming in. Usually drivers push it to 13 minutes to go, but I think with the size of the track, drivers with about 10 to go here are saying we have to come in now or else we'll be out of gas this lap.
Could be out of gas this lap. Also, tires are important here. I'm curious how many guys do and don't take tires here, because with all the uphills and the downhills and the grinding through the gears, you're going to burn up some tires at this track.
Yeah.
So,
oh, and one car's off the racetrack around San Diego. We keep going with San Diego up at the front. It is a top-off only for everybody except for Manuel Vargas so far. Blake Seedy in 18th also took tires. Everybody else taking fuel. And the reason for that, keep in mind, Derek, for this respective series, fuel is time. And do you have 20 seconds, 10 seconds to change a tire?
Probably not if you're Kevin San Diego. No. Ooh, there's some grass being cut right there. It's like we're playing Farm Sim and iRacing at the same time. No, if you're Kevin San Diego, you probably do not have that time to change those tires. Picking a random name here, if you're a Takeshi Kita, if you're a Kevin McPherson back in 10th or 11th, maybe you do. You know, maybe you have that time because you think you can still pass the guys around you who will be struggling on tires. It's always that question, no matter what style of racing and what your pit strategy is. There's guys who make lots of money making those strategy calls because they're difficult to make.
Juan Cofre, Verdi still tight amongst each other. You're dead even in the pit lane on terms of the box time. Here's the difference. Some troubles for Juan Cofre, seeing a 4-second slower delta in the lane in of itself. So that has now put Cofre up for grabs for not just Verdi, but possibly Dominic Olivier to try and pounce.
So there's a couple things that can cause that difference in delta, JP. One of them, while maybe minimal, is do you use the pit limiter or do you manage your pit road speed on your own with your foot? The pit limiter is safer.
Oh, hold on. Kevin San Diego has just peeled down for his second pit stop. What's going on here?
I wonder if he forgot the fuel? I don't know.
How do you forget the fuel after leading the whole race?
I guess, no, I agree with you. But I was saying, I don't know. I don't know. Does he have a black flag?
That's a great question here. This is a lengthy stop. Yes, San Diego is off and away. What is going on here?
That's a good question. I feel like either he forgot to set his pit stop correctly and must have missed out on fuel the first time or had a black flag. That was a quick stop. I'm not sure. I want to look into that. But yeah, that was interesting. In fact, I kind of forgot where I was going with that before that big thing happened.
Yeah, even if it was a penalty, for those curious, it would have been a 40-second hold,
right.
Not a 15.
Yeah, okay, so this brings back to where I was talking about the importance of pit road. That actually is a great segue, Justin, into the dangers of pit road. We talked about that pit delta of 4 seconds apart. How you get on pit road, how soon you brake or how late you brake for those cones, mixed in with how do you manage your speeds on pit road, is a big difference between, honestly, members on iRacing who practice and don't practice your pit road entry, no matter if it's the F3, the LMP2, the NASCARs, the IR01s, it doesn't matter. That's an important skill that a lot of people in iRacing forget, and a 4-second pit delta is massive. That's a good job.
You know what's also big here? Francisco Gonçalves up at the front now for the first time today, for the first time really in the past few years, to say the very minimum. But here's the tough part. Now, they took less fuel by up to 4/10 on the tank. Is there enough fuel in the tank is going to be a big question, because I wonder if the factor was, do they save off San Diego for the setup? Now they don't have a saving partner.
Now they don't have a draft, right? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously the real heartbreak here is Kevin San Diego back in 11th, according to the scoring pylon on the left side of your screen. I'm guessing that 15-second stop, he took some tires. So I suspect to see him climb his way back into the top 10 with new tires on that car. But boy, for someone who led every lap and it's best at qualifying today, JP, that's a heartbreaker.
Birdie now with the chance to battle for the podium with Juan Cofre. Cofre, though, starting to run away in that Agro CF machine. Olivier just within drafting distance now. That's the bigger thing. Olivier on debut tonight in this car type. For reference, Olivier last time by closed up near more than a second on this battle pack, though. Olivier is one of the fastest cars on the track.
And that's an incredible pace. If you can close up a second on someone in a lap here, you're doing really well. And you must have some good confidence about what your car is doing and your ability at this track.
Okay, we've just received the clarification here, and this is the understanding now in terms of possibly what happened there with San Diego. The 40 seconds penalty is usually with the tires or the fuel. However, in terms of these cars, it used to be potentially a 1 second, say stock cars, where you could uncheck everything and then only have like a 1 second penalty and stop and go. In this car type, it was 15 seconds for San Diego. So it involves that penalty involving that pit exit likely, Derek, that has cost San Diego the race. San Diego in 10th, 30 plus seconds back.
Yeah, so either, as you said, either he hit the merge line too soon or was speeding, one of the two, on pit road. That's difficult. And now the real difficult for Kevin and San Diego back in 11th is how do you keep, actually up to 10th now, pardon me, how do you keep your cool? You know, how do you not get frustrated? How do you not make more mistakes? There's that NASCAR saying of cautions breed cautions, but also mistakes breed mistakes. Because now you're mad, you're angry, you're frustrated, you threw away a race. You know, we all in our own way vent during the race to ourselves, but now you have to kind of keep it cool and realize it's a big picture day here in this moment.
Looking at San Diego, Takeshi Kita quietly has gone from about the 20s to 9th.
That's what Takeshi Kita does, JP.
San Diego does what he wants to do. Go to the left side to pass by Kita. Big difference on speed, a little bit of a squeeze as well. Kita lets by San Diego back to the 9th position. But this has been very well done as right for Kita tonight. Did not have the qualifying speed as to be expected from Kita normally. He was top 10 of the points last season with a couple DNFs. One DNF counted towards his points, remember, with the 9 rounds per points and the 1 drop.
Takeshi Kita is an amazing talent in this league. You know, when I first joined in, you guys taught me he's sneaky, and I was like, what does that mean? And now I know. Every race, it feels like Takeshi Kita qualifies mid, I think is a fair way to say it, but always finishes in top 10. And he kind of does it very quietly. He's not someone who makes aggressive passes. He's not, you know, on the highlight reels for wrecks. He just kind of gets there. It's so impressive to see.
It's kind of something to be expected in some cases for the Atomic Racing machine. Right now, holding on to the margin by about 5 car lengths over McPherson, for reference, by the way.
Yeah, and you know, that team reference that you made for Atomic Racing, that team aspect of PRL is important about why these drivers want to get out here and still race, because those team points matter. Even if you think you're not going to win the race, you can still benefit your team in the team standings. That's another reason to keep out here and keep racing. I love this team system. I have fallen in love with it the past couple seasons. I think it's an incredible way to motivate people.
Take a look at the personal best times last time Gonçalves. In terms of those personal best, a little bit quicker than Placio. This past time by another half a second was gained, in fact, by Gonçalves over Placio. So Gonçalves for sub-corrida. Still running the tempo and running away from your defending champion in clean air. This is push mode with about 5 to go.
This is push mode, but honestly, though, what a great night for Julio Palacio. He was really just kind of locked into a couple of spots. No disrespect, but at one point I thought maybe he was locked into 4th tonight out of a podium. And in between the Kevin San Diego penalty and between a couple other cars going off track, now he's looking at a podium at a P2 and a very strong night.
The only one of the drivers who have been in the ballpark of that fastest lap in the 139s in this grouping of drivers up towards the front has been Boris Silvano again. 138.8, still the personal best from before pit stops from Kofre. But you have to wonder what's going through Gonçalves' head. First time out of this car in this series, and he did this tonight. It's not how you expected it to go, but right from the onset, kept up with San Diego, kept him in check, didn't let him run away. Usually we've seen drivers in the past run away by 3 seconds, not tonight.
No, this race has been close. I mean, this 2-second gap right now between first and second, This is the biggest gap all night for the lead as the race goes on. There's like a nice 139.7 being put down by your leader.
I'm ticking away. Keeping an eye on how things playing out in the battle for 10th position. Kita under pressure.
This Kita and McPherson, two common names, maybe two fan favorites in this series. They're going to battle it out and are going to have a close battle for these last 3 or 4 laps here. And it's going to be also kind of odd, JP. This doesn't always happen. Looks like so far tonight, we're going to make this a lap race instead of a timed race.
Usually the consistency, there is the rare occasion where chaos ends up reigning supreme and the entire field wrecks once over and you end up going to time. But it is there to make sure that there is an exact time frame of about 45 minutes. When there's usually the laps get to around 45 minutes regardless, it's rare to have less than the scheduled distance these days. Unless we have a lot of trouble for the lead. Not too much trouble for McPherson yet. Now McPherson getting a little bit brave, can't make it work.
He's trying though. Look how he's moving that car around in those S's. Really trying his best to stay out of that dirty air and also find any opening he can. Now that the pressure's on, the laps are down. You have to be now or never when it comes to making a move to make a pass here.
About 23 cars still running. Most of the drivers, 24 of them back outside of ZD, have officially retired their race cars, by the way. Shout out to some of those involved in the early incident still running. Andrew Moran, 5 laps down, a former champion F4 competition, as now can be called. Swindell's still running, 5 laps down, 22nd. Chinsky, amongst the big ones, 6 laps down as well. Michael Dowden involved 19th on the track, a top 5 points run last year. But drivers like Kita doing what they need to do to be able to try and start off solidly, try and battle it out at least for the top 10, if not top 5 in standings early.
Some great battles going on here, and all night long it's been close. It's been tight. There's been no obvious runaways. I've had a good time tonight. I'm glad this is our season opener. Next week, I believe we go to Mosport. Is that right? Putting on the spot, sorry.
That's in a couple weeks, in fact.
Okay. But yeah, so and I brought up that track because to me that track and this track have a lot in common. There's a lot of narrow turns and uphill, downhill. So I suspect maybe the guys who do well tonight at VIR might have similar performances at that track. That's why it stuck out in my head. That's hello.
Oh, that was more so nearly hello and goodbye to the race. Kita having to give up the spot there. That was not a pretty run up the hillside.
And I think Takeshi Kita thinks that wasn't a pretty run by Kevin McPherson to make him make that move. I'm sure Takeshi Kita is not happy right now because he's going to feel like that was an aggressive move to push him out there.
If anything, both of them are closing now to San Diego. Now let's take a look at Gonzalez coming up to 2 to go this upcoming time by. Still plenty of time on the clock in amongst itself, so we should get the full distance down. Gonzalez and Palacio still keeping things even-footed around 2.5 to 3 seconds now. This has been the common trait, but there is lap traffic ahead for Gonzalez. That's critical.
Yeah, that can be critical. How that lap traffic behaves here with 2 to go. It's hard to think they would cause a 2-second gap to disappear, but what'll happen is it can easily frustrate Francisco, and maybe his own mistake closes that 2-second gap, but most lap traffic will let him by. I mean, what do you have to fight him for at this point? I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Find out if Kevin San Diego can hold on in the midst of the battles as well, working their way out of left hook and up towards the snake. McPherson still staying within a bit of the distance on draft, but San Diego has had the speed all night to break away a bit.
Yeah, he had. I mean, think about, obviously he's still going to run well. He's up to 9th. I mean, he was running incredibly well up front, so not surprised to see what's next. Yeah, next week is Barcelona, by the way. I had the wrong track on my head. Sorry about that.
And Barcelona's not going to be an easy track to pass on, a lot of aero there, but it's also a track where lots of sends can happen, keep in mind, especially that run up the front stretch, but also the back stretch before those chicanes.
What a classic track that is. I'm excited to get there next week and see how it behaves. Of course, it's a current F1 track, so it's high speeds and big corners. That's part of what you get your FIA grade 1 from, so that'll be a little different from tonight in some ways.
For Palacio, though, last season, Palacio the only driver to finish in the top 5 every single round. Starting off right where he left off with his consistency for Speedworks.
Yeah, and consistency wins championships, not wins. Now, Julio had his wins last year. Don't confuse me. Those wins help. But I think if you're a driver who had a consistency of a podium every week or a top 5 every week, you'd do really well, even if you didn't win a race.
He's been running towards the front all day, but has taken advantage of some of the attrition, yes. But it's also been solidly matching times with your race leader. Juan Cofre still holding on to third, by the way, for the rounding out of the podium currently. Gonzalez now clear of traffic, expecting the white flag this time by under 2 minutes on the clock. And also coming up to 1 lap to go on the board. 1 lap to go this time by in the season opener for the PRL's F3 Series from VIR.
Well, JP, if you wanted to come out and make a debut in a series, I think this would be the textbook example of what you want to do.
Seen some speed from drivers from the Gonzalez grouping over the years, but Gonzalez today, in this regard, for this respective driver, top 2 from the start. Able to take advantage after troubles for the pit lane exit for Kevin Sandiego through penalties. But now, since then, it's proven the pace has been there. You see some of your biggest movers only had to move up a couple spots. Give shoutouts, though, to Olivier +9. Also key to up several spots. Robert Ridgway quietly went up to 8th as well, +5 today. Others like Precker and Thurman survived the chaos early on to be amongst the lead lap finishers here today.
Yeah, and it was way back in the field, but even Jones back there, I think, was up 10 spots as he avoided that wreck. And then you see all the people who unfortunately are down a bunch who just kind of piled into that wreck there on turn 1.
Final couple sectors to go.
Breathe easy, relax, don't make any mistakes, don't celebrate too soon, and you're going to, whoa, a little smoking the tire there. You're going to bring it home safely. I got excited. I was like, oh, I hope I didn't do that.
One more corner for Francisco Gonzalez to deal with. Francisco Gonzalez on debut in the PRL F3 Series. Starts off the season with the checker flag. He wins at VIR.
Well-deserved victory. Great debut. Great run. Awesome race.
Lacio second. Juan Cofre amongst the top 3. Gonzalez already celebrating. You can already see with the amount of weaving that Gonzalez is absolutely pumped.
Oh, yeah.
Couple other battles still yet to close up here. Once those in this grouping, Vasconcelos with Manuel Vargas quietly up in 12th position. Remember, Vargas amongst those who had to take a 21-second pit stop earlier tonight. Still able to hold on to the 12th position, right behind Takeshi Kita by a few seconds. Still a couple more droppers to close things out of the racetrack here. Amongst those looking to close things out here on the racetrack, Moran Swindell is expected to be the last of those on the running pylon. Vincent General, the last on the lead lap today. For some of the droppers, it was a quiet night, yes. 19 seconds back for the last drop of the lead lap, but still. Tonight, it was survival of the fittest, with half the field DNFing this evening from incidents.
And it was survival of the fittest up and down the field, JP. It wasn't just the back of the field. We saw multiple drivers up front have penalties or issues tonight that put them in the back of the field. It was more than just that turn one wreck.
Celebrations on for Francisco Gonçalves. Let's take a look at your unofficial results for F3 Series action in the PRL. Gonçalves picks up the win by 2.1 seconds over Placio and Juan Cofre. Verity along with Olivier Poon Ovando, along with Ridgeway San Diego McPherson, your top 10. Back in the 11th spot today, in the midst of the battles, was Takeshi Kita with Manuel Vargas, Jake Vasconcelos, Caleb Lehman, and Corey Prucker, top 15. Thurman, Jasper, General, the last lead lap. Dowden and Notemaker in 20th. 21st went to Andrew Moran, 5 laps down after being involved in early troubles. Richard Swindell's 22nd, Chinsky in 23rd. Your DNFs include Blake Seedy, Loretto Morani, along with Ryan Jones, Ryan Miles, Austin Harris, Roberto Cofre from 2nd, along with Boris Armstrong, Ritters, Conte, Johnson, Giori, Santos, and Colander all out in the big one in the first sector. Juan Cofre picks up the fastest lap. But as we wait along and see which drivers have the time to stop by in the midst of their celebrations, Derek, how would you describe tonight's racing?
I think you said the right words right before the leader or the finishing board there, JP. It's survival of the fittest, up and down the board. It's not only about avoiding a wreck, it was about avoiding mistakes. It's week one. You had to kind of get the cobwebs out, maybe the shake off whatever rust you had. And it affected some drivers tonight in multiple ways. We saw multiple drivers as lose focus and head off in the grass and find a wall tonight.
But it was also, in turn, for some drivers, the battle of perseverance from rough qualifying spots. We talked a lot about Kita. We didn't talk so much about errors like Ridgeway, who was mid-pack in quali, who went up top 8. You also throw in Dominic Olivier, who did really well tonight.
Oh, yeah, and I think the one to talk about to sit out when you were going through the board there, Nonamaker, up to 20th. He qualified, I'm pretty sure, dead last, if I recall right.
Yes.
And because of that wreck and impatience and racing and whatever else he was able to do tonight, up 17 spots at the end of the race, I do believe.
Indeed, a good recovery as a result of being able to get the car back on the racetrack. Lost a lap, yes, but still finished second on those a lap down. Still waiting a couple more moments before we see which drivers take the time to have an opportunity to speak with us here. But you mentioned Barcelona up next. In terms of Barcelona, how do you approach that racetrack? How about we actually ask the driver who just stopped by here, Leo Placio, now taking the time to speak with us from second step of the podium. First of all, how was VIR from your perspective?
Yeah, it was a tough one. This was a tough track. I was a little worried about it. Just you can't make a lot of mistakes. It's hard to really push. So yeah, I'm very happy with my result. It's great with a lot of people coming into this season, and I got to defend.
What was the viewpoint like from the chaos that seemed to spark up just behind you in that first sector?
Yeah, I didn't really see it. I got a really good start and got into fourth, and then just kind of tried to stay with Kevin and Francisco through the whole way, which I was able to for a long time. So I really have no idea what happened, behind me. I didn't really see it.
Well, half the field ended up crashing, is what partly happened. But in terms of this approach, you were top 5 every race last season. How difficult, or rather, how will it have to be for you to try and repeat that again with how difficult that is to do?
Yeah, it's going to be really hard. We got, a lot of people have come into this season, which I'm super excited about. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think folks are racing well. It's going to be tough. You have to be lucky. And you have to stay at it and, play the long ball, right? In terms of making sure you can last the entire race.
Well, we'll let you get going. Thank you very much for the time. Congrats on the second place to start and continue your top 5 streak.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. That's Julio Placio coming away second spot tonight. I thank him for taking the time to speak. You're in post-race coverage here on RaceSpot. Your final thoughts, Derek, on the night as we get ready to head off into the sunset.
Well, I think the phrase new faces and new places definitely applied tonight. We saw some new drivers come in, JP, who really put a name out for themselves, and I think will be a contender in the next 9 races.
Circuit of Barcelona, next up on the tracks, the historic layout from Barcelona. That's on June the 28th. Coverage starts 9:30 p.m. Eastern here on RaceSpot. But until that time, it's time to get ready and say goodbye as we get ready for that action next time out. For our producer, once again, Raphael Sankey, for Derek Watson, I'm Justin Prince saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We'll be able to see you next time out when we go to Barcelona to see how drivers recover after a busy time here from VIR. You've been watching the PRL and the F3 series here on RaceSpot.